Olivia Wood was 72 years old, but she looked much younger. She had a lovely face. Only her big gray eyes made her look older. Olivia had left her husband, Ronald, many years ago. Olivia and Ronald had 2 sons, Jack and Steve. Jack, the older son, had died when Steve was only 10. Now Steve was 34. He lived with his mother and worked as a lawyer in London. Steve Wood did not earn much money, but this was not a problem. His mother was a rich woman. Olivia's niece, Laura, also lived in the house. Her father, Ronald Wood's brother, had died 5 years ago. Laura had no money or home of her own. She needed a place to live, so she was dependent on her Aunt Olivia. Laura was a tall young woman with dark hair and eyes. She was very shy. She was in love with her cousin Steve, but she had never told him this. Steve was also very shy. He had no confidence in himself. Olivia, Steve, and Laura lived together quietly in a lovely house about 25 miles from London. The house had a lovely garden. It was the perfect house and the perfect life for Olivia. Every day, Steve went to work in London. Then, when he came home, the 3 of them, Olivia, Steve, and Laura, ate dinner together. During dinner, there were always candles on the table. Olivia liked candles because the soft candlelight made her look young and beautiful. After dinner, they had tea in the warm drawing room. The room was filled with beautiful furniture. For many years, Olivia had collected furniture and beautiful, unique artwork from different countries. Olivia, Steve, and Laura chatted together pleasantly. Their conversation was always simple and cheerful. Then, at 9:30, Laura carried the trays of teacups out of the room. Steve always stayed and continued talking to his mother. He always listened to everything that she said. At the side of the house, there was a large courtyard. Laura had a flat just across the courtyard, above the old coach house. Laura did not always go to her flat after dinner. In summer, she sometimes sat outside in the large garden. She listened to Olivia's laughter coming from the drawing room. In winter, Laura put on a thick coat and walked through the garden and down to the little bridge over the lake. She liked to hear the water running under the bridge. She would look back at the lighted windows of the drawing room where Olivia and Steve were so happy together. Laura loved Steve. I believe that Aunt Olivia wants Steve to marry me when she dies, she thought. But Steve is very shy. Perhaps his mother won't die for many years. By that time, it will be too late. Steve will be just an empty man who never enjoyed his life. Sometimes Laura stayed in the dark garden until about 10 o'clock, when she saw the light go on in Olivia's bedroom. Steve usually stayed in the drawing room for another hour, then he would go to bed too. Laura, standing in the garden, wanted to go to him. She wanted to say, "Oh, Steve, this is all wrong." But she could not do this because Aunt Olivia would hear, so she went to her own room. In the mornings, Steve went to London at about 10 o'clock. Olivia rested in bed. She came downstairs at lunchtime. Sometimes she did not leave her bedroom until tea time, but she always looked fresh and young. Olivia always liked to rest in the afternoons. When the sun shone, she liked to lie outside and bathe in the warm sun. The courtyard was surrounded by trees. The sun shone right down into this courtyard, so it was a perfect place for sunbathing. Here, Laura put a chair for Olivia to lie on, a large umbrella, and blankets. If the sun became too hot, Olivia could lie in the shade of the umbrella. One afternoon, Laura decided to sunbathe too. She found a ladder and climbed up onto the flat roof of the house. Then she lay down on a blanket in one corner of the roof. It was lovely, lying in the warm sun. The warmth of the sun on her legs and arms made Laura feel comfortable and relaxed. Suddenly she heard a voice speaking softly, and her heart jumped with fear and shock. "No, Jack dear, it was not my fault that you died instead of marrying Scarlett," said the voice. The voice did not sound human. Where was it coming from? There must be someone on the roof. Laura lifted her head and looked around, but there was nobody on the roof with her. Suddenly, she heard the soft voice again. "No, darling, I said that you would be tired of her in 6 months. I warned you, and it was true. I couldn't do anything more, and you died without ever knowing me again." The voice was silent. Laura lay on her blanket. It was a beautiful summer afternoon. Did the voice belong to a ghost? Laura hated the idea of ghosts, spirits, and magic. Then she heard a deep sigh, and the strange voice spoke again. "Ah, well, a heart must feel pain, but it wasn't my fault, dear. It is better for a heart to feel pain rather than break from sorrow. And Steve could marry poor, boring Laura tomorrow if he wanted to, but he doesn't care about her." Laura sat up quickly. She was very surprised. It was Aunt Olivia talking. It must be Olivia. Where was she? And how was Laura hearing her strange whispers? Olivia must be lying right below her, and she must be using a trick to make her voice sound strange. Olivia was trying to frighten her. Laura was still afraid, but she was now thinking more clearly. Laura lay down again. She knew the story of Jack, Steve's older brother. Jack had been in love with Scarlett, a beautiful young actress, but his mother had been against Scarlett and had laughed at Jack. Jack had become ill with a brain disease and died at the age of 23. "I think that I should get up now," the voice was saying. "I've had enough, son. A woman might live forever if she has enough sun, love, and good food. I truly believe a good life will make me live forever." "That is certainly Aunt Olivia's voice," Laura said to herself. "How horrible! I'm hearing Aunt Olivia's thoughts." Laura turned and looked down in front of her. She was looking at a hole in the corner of the roof. The pipe for taking away the rainwater went down into this hole. The water then came out of the rain pipe near the ground. Suddenly, a whisper came out of the hole. "Well, Olivia, get up. You've had enough sun today." Now Laura understood. Aunt Olivia was lying below her, and the rain pipe was carrying her voice up to the roof. Aunt Olivia was speaking her thoughts aloud. She did not know that the sound of her voice was going up to the roof. So Aunt Olivia was feeling guilty about Jack's death. He had died, and she thought that it was her fault. Laura believed that Olivia had loved her big, handsome son, Jack, more than she loved Steve. Jack's death had been a terrible shock for Olivia. She only loved Steve because Jack was dead. Laura put on her clothes, picked up her blanket, and carefully climbed down the ladder. As she went down, she heard her aunt calling, "All right, Laura." The lovely lady had finished sunbathing. She was returning to the house. Laura went into the courtyard. She picked up Olivia's blankets and the chair and put them in the house. Then she looked for the opening of the rain pipe. She found it in the corner of two walls outside the house. The mouth of the rain pipe was almost hidden by the leaves of a plant on the wall. When Olivia sat in her chair and turned her face to the wall, her mouth would be near to the rain pipe. Laura had heard her aunt's voice. No ghosts or spirits had made the voice. That evening, after they had drunk their tea, Olivia stood up and said, "The sun has made me so sleepy today. I shall go to bed now. You two sit and talk." When Olivia had gone to bed, Laura turned toward Steve and asked him, "Do you remember your brother Jack?" Steve looked at her in surprise and said, "Yes, very well." "What was he like?" asked Laura. "Tall and handsome, with soft black hair like mother. Women liked him. Jack was very happy and clever," Steve said. "Did he love your mother?" asked Laura. "Very much. She loved him too, more than she loves me," Steve said. "Steve, do you like me?" Laura said. Laura saw Steve's face become pale. "Yes, I like you very much," Steve said. "Come and sit with me in the garden." "But what about Mother?" he said. He was nervous and shy. Laura smiled a little and looked into his eyes. Suddenly Steve's face became red. A few minutes later, she left him and went to her flat. The sunny weather continued. It was now June. Every afternoon, Olivia sunbathed in the courtyard, and Laura lay on the roof of the house listening. But the sound of Olivia's voice did not come up the pipe again. After dinner in the evenings, Laura waited in the garden. She saw the light go on in her aunt's bedroom. She saw the lights go out in the drawing room. She waited, but Steve did not come into the garden. Then one night, he came out and walked towards Laura. "Don't speak," Steve whispered. They stood together, looking up at the stars in the dark sky. "How can I ask you to love me? And how can I marry?" he said. "I haven't made much money, and I can't ask my mother for money." "Then don't worry about marriage yet, but do love me a little," Laura said. They sat down in silence, and he held her hand. At last, she said good night, stood up, and went to her room. The next day, Laura lay on the roof, sunbathing. Suddenly she heard her aunt's voice from the rain hole. First, Olivia spoke in French, then she spoke in English. "No, Steve, dear," said Olivia's voice. "You will never be the same kind of man as your father, but you look like him. Louis was a wonderful lover. Louis, Louis, how you loved me." The voice stopped speaking. Laura realized that her aunt had a secret. Olivia's husband, Ronald, had not been Steve's father. Steve's father had been a Frenchman called Louis. "I'm disappointed with you, Steve," continued Olivia's voice. "Your father was a priest, but he was the best lover in the world. You are like a cold fish, and Laura is like a cat who is trying to catch you." Laura suddenly put her mouth near the hole in the rain pipe and spoke. "Leave Steve alone. Don't kill him too." There was a silence. Laura listened, with her heart beating quickly. At last, she heard her Aunt Olivia whisper the words, "Did someone speak?" Laura spoke again into the rain hole in a deep, terrible voice. "You killed me. Don't kill Steve too." "Who's speaking?" said Olivia. "Jack," said Laura in the same deep voice. There was silence again. "I didn't kill you, Jack. No, no. Jack, it wasn't my fault. I loved you, my dearest boy. I only wanted to help you." "You killed me. Now let Steve live. Let him go. Let him marry," Laura said in deep voice. "Jack, are you a ghost? Have you come to punish me for your death?" said Olivia. "Yes, I have come to punish you," said Laura in a terrible, frightening voice. She was very angry with Olivia. She felt that her anger was going down the rain pipe to her aunt. At the same time, she almost laughed. This was a very funny conversation. Laura lay and listened. No sound came from the rain pipe. The afternoon had become cooler. Black and gray clouds had covered the sun. there was a roar of thunder. A storm was coming. Laura dressed quickly, went down the ladder, and ran to the courtyard. "Aunt Olivia, did you hear thunder?" Laura asked. Yes, I am going inside the house. Don't wait for me." Laura watched her aunt go inside the house. The sky was getting darker. Laura took the blankets and the chair and hurried inside. Then the storm began. Olivia did not come downstairs to tea because she did not like thunder. Steve did not arrive home until after tea. By this time, it was raining. Laura went to her flat and got ready for dinner. She put on a pretty pink dress and went into the drawing room. Steve was waiting. He was standing by the drawing room window and listening to the rain falling. He now had a different look on his face as he watched her. The drawing room was lit by the soft light of a table lamp. Laura walked towards the study table near the door. When she heard the door opening, Laura suddenly turned on the switch of the ceiling light. Her aunt, wearing a black dress, stood in the doorway. The strong light showed her face clearly. Olivia was wearing makeup, but her face looked old and full of hate. "Mother, you look like a little old lady," said Steve in a shocked voice. "Aren't we going to eat dinner?" asked Olivia angrily. Olivia sat at the table, getting angrier and angrier. She looked very, very old and very ugly. Laura and Steve watched each other. He was very shocked by his mother's face. "You pour the tea. I hate it. I'm going to bed. Good night," said the old woman quickly. There was silence. At last Steve said, "I'm afraid that mother isn't well. She must see a doctor." The rest of the evening passed in silence. Steve and Laura stayed in the drawing room. A fire was lit. Outside, cold rain was falling. At about 11 o'clock, the door opened and Olivia came into the room. She shut the door and came to the fire. Then she looked at Steve and Laura with hate in her eyes and said, "You two should get married quickly. You are so much in love." Steve looked up at his mother and said quietly, "You believe that cousins should not marry, Mother. You told me that often." "I do believe that cousins should not marry," replied Olivia. "But you're not cousins. Your father was a French priest, Steve. He was a great man, and he was too great to have a weak son like you." With a terrible look on her face, Olivia left the room. Olivia had gone mad. Her madness went on for a week. The doctor came and told her that she must sleep. He gave her drugs to help her, but she did not take the medicine. She walked in her room looking ugly and full of hate. She would not look at either Steve or Laura. At first, Laura was frightened by what she had done. She realized that her trick had made her aunt mad. Laura almost felt sorry for the terrible thing that she had done. Then she thought, this woman is the real Olivia. We never saw her true face before. But Olivia was not going to live long. She stayed in her room and did not see anyone. She had her mirrors taken away. She did not want to look at herself. Steve and Laura spent a lot of time together, but Laura could not tell Steve what she had done. She was afraid. Do you think that your mother ever loved anybody? Laura asked him one evening. Mother only loved herself, and she loved power, Steve said. She got her power by controlling other people's lives. She was beautiful, and she grew strong by controlling everyone and everything. She destroyed Jack, and now she was destroying me. Can't you forgive her? Asked Laura. No, I can't. She took other people's hopes and happiness and destroyed them. 2 days later, Olivia died. Laura found her dead in her bed. Olivia's heart had become weak, and the drugs that she took were too strong for her. But after her death, Olivia got her revenge on her son and her niece. Olivia Wood was a very rich woman, but she left Steve only 1,000 pounds, and she left Laura only 100 pounds. The rest of her money went to a museum. She had built a museum and given it her own name, the Olivia Wood Museum.